When Elon Musk's 12-year-old daughter, Lily, dragged him to a crumbling farm in the pouring rain, he expected to write a check and walk away. But what the struggling farmer handed him in that broken-down barn, a single, dirt-stained notebook filled with impossible equations, would unravel everything Musk thought he knew about genius, sacrifice, and the quiet heroes changing our world. By sunrise, the richest man on earth would be on his knees in the mud, begging for forgiveness. This is the true story of how one child's compassion exposed a shocking injustice, and why Musk's response will leave you sobbing long after the last page. The rain hammered against the sagging roof of Samuel Calloway's barn like judgment from the heavens. Inside, the 68-year-old farmer knelt in the hay beside his last surviving dairy cow, his gnarled fingers working a syringe of antibiotics with the precision of a man who'd done this 10,000 times before. The cow's ribs jutted like barrel staves beneath her patchy hide, another victim of the drought that had turned Nebraska's topsoil to dust and Samuel's life savings to medical bills. "You hold on now, Bessie girl," Samuel murmured, stroking the cow's flank. His voice carried the quiet cadence of a man more accustomed to talking to animals than people. The barn smelled of manure and desperation, of feed grain stretched thin and dreams deferred. A single bare bulb swung overhead, casting shadows on the walls papered with yellowing notebooks, decades of Samuel's handwritten equations on everything from soil pH algorithms to a radical new water desalination process. In the corner, covered by a tarp, sat the reason Samuel hadn't slept more than 3 hours a night since his wife passed, a jury-rigged atmospheric water generator cobbled together from old tractor parts and scrap copper. It whirred softly, producing exactly 1.2 gallons per day, not enough to save his farm, but proof the design worked. The screen door of the farmhouse slammed. "Grandpa!" A small figure in a soaked yellow raincoat appeared in the barn doorway, her boots kicking up dust where there should have been straw. Emily, his 12-year-old granddaughter, clutched her tablet like a lifeline. The bankman called again. "He says." "I know what he says." Samuel wiped his hands on his overalls, leaving streaks of dirt and blood. The foreclosure notice had arrived a week ago, right after the last of his corn withered in the field. He forced a smile. "What are you watching there, Sprout?" Emily turned the tablet around. A SpaceX live stream showed Elon Musk announcing another Starship launch. "He's the smartest man in the world," she said with the absolute faith of a child. "If we showed him your notebooks, he could. Men like that don't got time for broken-down farmers." Samuel ruffled her hair, ignoring the twinge in his back from sleeping in the barn to monitor Bessie. His gaze drifted to the framed photo on the wall, a young Samuel in an MIT lab coat, standing beside his late wife at the patent office. 1978. Back when the world still seemed fixable. The tablet pinged. Emily gasped. "Grandpa, look." A notification flashed across the SpaceX stream. "Lily Musk has sent you a direct message." Samuel's hands shook as he read the words that would change everything. "My dad needs to see your water machine. We're coming tomorrow." Outside, thunder rolled across the barren fields as Samuel realized two terrible truths. His granddaughter had been messaging Musk's daughter for weeks. The equations in his notebooks, the ones he'd abandoned decades ago to save the family farm, were about to collide with the future. The storm had turned the dirt driveway into a river of mud by the time the black Tesla convoy slithered into Samuel's farm. He stood on the porch, his calloused hands gripping the railing as 5 vehicles fanned out like military transports. Doors opened in unison, bodyguards materializing with umbrellas that did nothing against the horizontal rain. Then he stepped out, Elon Musk in a black turtleneck, his designer boots sinking instantly into the muck. A small figure darted past him, Lily Musk, her raincoat hood flying back to reveal twin braids whipping in the wind. She charged straight for Emily with the single-minded focus of a child who'd found her first true friend. Samuel's stomach dropped when Musk's gaze locked onto the barn. Not the crumbling farmhouse. Not the skeletal remains of the cornfield. The barn, where Samuel's life's work sat covered in dust and chicken feed. "You must be Samuel." Musk extended a hand, his voice softer than the interviews suggested. Up close, the billionaire looked exhausted, dark circles under eyes that kept flicking to his daughter. "Lily showed me your granddaughter's messages. And these." From his pocket, he produced printed sheets, Samuel's own equations, the ones Emily had photographed and sent. The water distillation variables he'd scribbled in the margins of veterinary bills. The atmospheric condensation formulas he'd worked out during chemotherapy sessions. All marked up in red pen with notes like, "Why copper alloy?" and "Have you tested saline saturation limits?" Samuel's throat tightened. Those weren't just Musk's notes. They were the right questions. A sharp cry cut through the rain. Inside the barn, Bessie had collapsed, her labored breaths fogging the cold air. Samuel moved without thinking, years of pre-dawn emergencies propelling him to the cow's side. He barely registered Musk following, the billionaire's expensive shoes ruined by the manure-strewn floor. "Epinephrine," Samuel barked at Emily, who already had the vet kit open. His hands moved with practiced precision, finding the vein beneath Bessie's patchy hide. The syringe trembled, not from uncertainty, but from the realization that this might be the last dose he could afford. A shadow fell across them. Musk was studying the jury-rigged water generator, his fingers tracing the rusted tractor parts Samuel had welded together. "You built this from scrap?" Samuel didn't look up. Had to. Patent lawyers took everything else. The silence that followed was louder than the storm. When Samuel finally met Musk's eyes, he saw something unexpected, recognition. Not of Samuel's face, but of his rage. Lily's voice piped up from beside Emily. "Daddy, we have to help Bessie." She held up Samuel's notebook, open to a page with a crude drawing of a solar-powered dialysis machine, something he'd sketched years ago to filter toxins from sick livestock. "Mr. Calloway already knows how." Musk's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, SpaceX board emergency, and silenced it with a swipe. For the first time since arriving, he seemed to really see the barn. The equations wallpapering the walls, the veterinary bags hanging from hay hooks, the way Emily instinctively positioned herself between her grandfather and the strangers. Then the richest man on earth knelt in the manure beside a dying cow and said 3 words that would unravel Samuel's quiet desperation. "Show me everything." The storm raged outside as Samuel wiped his grease-stained hands on a rag that had once been his wife's favorite apron. The scent of manure and wet hay clung to the barn's wooden beams, mixing with the sharp tang of ozone from the flickering overhead light. Musk hadn't moved from his spot beside the water generator, his designer clothes now as ruined as Samuel's pride. "You patented a moisture extraction process in 1981. Musk's voice cut through the barn's shadows like a scalpel, then disappeared from MIT's radar completely. Samuel's hands stilled on Bessie's 4-line. 40 years. 40 years since those patent lawyers had descended like vultures, since he'd buried his research and returned home to save the family farm. He could still smell the antiseptic of the hospital room where he'd held his father's hand through the bankruptcy hearings. Emily squeezed his arm, her small fingers warm against his weather-beaten skin. "Grandpa invented lots of things," she announced to the room. "The notebook in the kitchen has drawings for a tractor that runs on methane from cow poop." Lily gasped, her eyes widening with the pure, unfiltered wonder only children possess. "That's better than Starship." The unexpected compliment pulled a hoarse chuckle from Samuel's chest. He reached for the warped floorboard beneath Bessie's stall, the one that creaked just wrong. With a practiced twist, He pried it up, revealing a rusted lockbox crusted with dirt. 1979 to 1983, Samuel said, the metal box heavy with more than just papers. Back when I was stupid enough to think changing the world was possible. The lock yielded to a combination Samuel hadn't forgotten, his wife's birthday. Inside lay the ghosts of his ambition, yellowed patent applications stamped rejected, lab notebooks filled with equations far more advanced than the barn wall scribbles, and a single black-and-white photo of a young Samuel standing beside a gleaming prototype at MIT. Musk lifted a brittle page with surprising care. This isn't just a water generator. You cracked atmospheric hydrogen bonding. His finger traced an equation Samuel had nearly forgotten writing. Do you realize what this means? Samuel swallowed hard. He'd dreamed of this moment in his 20s, recognition from someone who understood. Now all he felt was the weight of Bessie's labored breathing against his knees. It means nothing if I can't save my herd. His voice cracked like the drought-parched earth outside. The corporate farms poisoned our aquifer. That machine. He jerked his chin toward the jury-rigged generator. It makes enough water to keep Bessie alive. Barely. A flash of lightning illuminated the barn's back wall, and the rows of empty stalls where 30 dairy cows had once stood. Samuel didn't need to say what everyone could see. Bessie was the last. Musk's phone buzzed again. SpaceX board. Final warning. He silenced it without looking, his attention locked on Samuel's face. Who owns your patents now? AgriGrow International. The name tasted like bile. They sent the first cease and desist when I tried to fix my neighbor's irrigation system. Lily tugged her father's sleeve. Daddy, we have to. I know. Musk's jaw tightened as he pulled out his phone and typed a single command. Initiate Project Blue Harvest. He met Samuel's gaze. My legal team will be here in 2 hours. But first... He rolled up his ruined sleeves. Tell me how this really works. For the first time in decades, Samuel Calloway, the boy genius who'd become a broken farmer, felt something dangerous flicker to life in his chest. Hope. The storm raged outside as Samuel wiped his grease-stained hands on a rag that had once been his wife's favorite apron. The scent of manure and wet hay clung to the barn's wooden beams, mixing with the sharp tang of ozone from the flickering overhead light. Musk hadn't moved from his spot beside the water generator, his designer clothes now as ruined as Samuel's pride. You patented a moisture extraction process in 1981. Musk's voice cut through the barn's shadows like a scalpel, then disappeared from MIT's radar completely. Samuel's hands stilled on Bessie's 4-line. 40 years. 40 years since those patent lawyers had descended like vultures, since he'd buried his research and returned home to save the family farm. He could still smell the antiseptic of the hospital room where he'd held his father's hand through the bankruptcy hearings. Emily squeezed his arm, her small fingers warm against his weather-beaten skin. "Grandpa invented lots of things," she announced to the room. "The notebook in the kitchen has drawings for a tractor that runs on methane from cow poop." Lily gasped, her eyes widening with the pure, unfiltered wonder only children possess. "That's better than Starship." The unexpected compliment pulled a hoarse chuckle from Samuel's chest. He reached for the warped floorboard beneath Bessie's stall, the one that creaked just wrong. With a practiced twist, he pried it up, revealing a rusted lockbox crusted with dirt. 1979 to 1983, Samuel said, the metal box heavy with more than just papers. Back when I was stupid enough to think changing the world was possible. The lock yielded to a combination Samuel hadn't forgotten, his wife's birthday. Inside lay the ghosts of his ambition, yellowed patent applications stamped rejected, lab notebooks filled with equations far more advanced than the barn wall scribbles, and a single black-and-white photo of a young Samuel standing beside a gleaming prototype at MIT. Musk lifted a brittle page with surprising care. "This isn't just a water generator. You cracked atmospheric hydrogen bonding." His finger traced an equation Samuel had nearly forgotten writing. "Do you realize what this means?" Samuel swallowed hard. He'd dreamed of this moment in his 20s, recognition from someone who understood. Now all he felt was the weight of Bessie's labored breathing against his knees. "It means nothing if I can't save my herd." His voice cracked like the drought-parched earth outside. "The corporate farms poisoned our aquifer. That machine—" He jerked his chin toward the jury-rigged generator. "It makes enough water to keep Bessie alive." "Barely." A flash of lightning illuminated the barn's back wall, and the rows of empty stalls where 30 dairy cows had once stood. Samuel didn't need to say what everyone could see. Bessie was the last. Musk's phone buzzed again. SpaceX board. Final warning. He silenced it without looking, his attention locked on Samuel's face. "Who owns your patents now?" "AgriGrow International." The name tasted like bile. "They sent the first cease and desist when I tried to fix my neighbor's irrigation system." Lily tugged her father's sleeve. "Daddy, we have to." "I know." Musk's jaw tightened as he pulled out his phone and typed a single command. "Initiate Project Blue Harvest." He met Samuel's gaze. "My legal team will be here in 2 hours. But first—" He rolled up his ruined sleeves. "Tell me how this really works." For the first time in decades, Samuel Calloway, the boy genius who'd become a broken farmer, felt something dangerous flicker to life in his chest. Hope. The pre-dawn light crept through the barn's broken slats as Samuel and Musk worked through the night, their shadows stretching across walls papered with equations. Coffee steamed in chipped mugs, Samuel's last grounds, brewed strong enough to strip paint. The scent of burning solder mixed with the earthy aroma of wet hay as they modified Samuel's prototype, their hands moving in sync like they'd collaborated for years rather than hours. Musk wiped grease across his already ruined turtleneck, examining the modified condenser coil. "We can triple output if we integrate Tesla's solar film instead of these tractor parts." His fingers danced across his tablet, pulling up schematics that made Samuel's pulse quicken. "But it won't matter unless we break AgriGrow's patent stranglehold," Samuel finished, his voice gravelly with exhaustion. He reached for the legal folder Musk's lawyers had delivered at 3 a.m. The documents inside were damning. AgriGrow had systematically acquired over 1,400 small farm water rights, then deliberately contaminated wells to force sales. Samuel's patents were just collateral damage in their quest for monopoly. Emily's sleepy voice piped up from the hayloft where she and Lily had built a nest of blankets. "What about the bees?" Musk frowned. "Bees." Samuel's calloused finger tapped a faded photo in the legal files, an AgriGrow field report noting unexpected apiary interference near poisoned wells. "My wife kept hives. Her hybrids could detect toxins before any lab test." His throat tightened. "They all died the week before she did." Lily scrambled down the ladder, her tablet already open. "Daddy, look." Emily's mom wrote a whole paper on it. She thrust the screen forward, displaying research by Dr. Rachel Calloway, Samuel's late daughter, proving the bees could track water contamination with 99.7% accuracy. Musk's eyes locked onto Samuel's. "We don't just sue them. We expose them." He grabbed a rusted bucket, appending it to sketch a battle plan in the dirt. "Tech surge. Mass-produce Samuel's water generators using Tesla's factories. B evidence. Reactivate Rachel's research with MIT's help. Media Blitz. Lily and Emily would document everything. A new alert blared from Musk's phone. Agrigro's CEO. Urgent call. Samuel's hands trembled. They'd been found out already. Musk silenced it with a smirk. Not them. I just bought 11% of their stock through shell companies. He turned the screen to reveal a live feed from Wall Street. Agrigro's shares were plummeting as rumors spread of a hostile takeover by an ecotech consortium. Samuel's knees nearly buckled. After 40 years of fighting alone, the cavalry had arrived in the form of the world's most unpredictable billionaire. But outside, the first rays of sunlight revealed a new problem. Bessie's breathing had turned shallow, her nose dry as dust despite the 4 fluids. The generator's output was failing. Musk saw it too. He yanked open the barn doors, revealing a Tesla semi parked at the gate, its trailer loaded with enough solar panels and battery packs to power a small town. First batch of upgrades, he said. Then softer, but we need that data now. Samuel moved to Rachel's old workstation, the one he hadn't touched since her funeral. His fingers brushed the dusty microscope as Emily pressed against his side, her small hand slipping into his. In that moment, Samuel realized the true challenge wasn't technology or lawsuits. It was believing, just one more time, that the world could be fair. As if reading his mind, Musk tossed him a wrench. Your wife's bees are about to become the most famous insects on Earth. The abandoned apiary buzzed with renewed life as Samuel lifted the lid from the first hive, his hands steadier than they'd been in years. Morning sunlight glinted off the new observation frames Musk's engineers had installed overnight, their embedded microphones capturing every vibration of the bees' wings. Behind him, a Tesla mobile lab hummed with activity, its screens displaying real-time data streams that would make any university research facility envious. "They remember," Samuel whispered as the first hybrid bee crawled onto his weathered finger, a descendant of his wife's original strain, bred to seek clean water. Its delicate antennae twitched toward the row of test samples, Agrigro's contaminated well water beside filtered output from Samuel's generator. Lily's gasp echoed through the apiary speakers. "They're dancing differently." She pointed to the high-speed footage on her tablet, where bees from the control group performed frantic, jagged movements compared to the calm, looping patterns near Samuel's purified water. Musk adjusted the spectrometer, his usually confident hands betraying a rare tremor. "This isn't just behavioral data. Look at the wing vibrations. They're emitting distinct frequency patterns for each toxin." The machine's readout scrolled with damning clarity. Match TO Agrigro's signature fertilizer blend, 98.9% confidence. Emily clutched her mother's research journal to her chest, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Mom was right all along. The moment shattered as tires screeched on gravel. 3 black SUVs emblazoned with Agrigro security surrounded the apiary. A square-jawed man in a too-tight suit emerged, flanked by corporate lackeys holding a cease and desist order. "Mr. Calloway," the suit sneered, "you're in violation of 17 patents and—" Musk stepped forward, wiping bee pollen on his jeans. "Actually, Carl, can I call you Carl? You're trespassing on Tesla property now." He nodded to the newly installed sign, Tesla Agricultural Research Station, NO Unauthorized Access. Carl's smile turned venomous. "Your little stunt crashed our stock price, but it won't matter." He tossed a newspaper at Samuel's feet. The business section showed Agrigro's CEO shaking hands with a Pentagon official. DoD awards $4 billion contract for drought-resistant crops. Samuel's heart sank. No court would challenge a defense contractor. Then Lily did something extraordinary. She aimed her tablet's camera directly at Carl's face and asked in her most innocent voice, "Why does your company hate clean water?" The live stream counter exploded, 500,000 viewers, then 1 million, as the world watched a flustered corporate thug sputter excuses to a 12-year-old. Emily joined in, holding up her mother's journal. "My mom proved your chemicals kill bees. And people." Carl lunged for the tablet, just as a familiar rumble shook the ground. Bessie the cow came charging from the barn, her forebag flapping, heading straight for the agri-grow suits with singular bovine fury. Later, Musk would claim he'd never seen grown men scream so high. In the chaos, Samuel noticed what everyone else missed. The bees had clustered on just one water sample. The contaminated one. They weren't avoiding it, they were working it, their bodies absorbing toxins in a suicidal purification ritual his wife had documented but never understood. Musk's phone rang. The caller ID read White House switchboard. He answered on speaker. "Elon, we saw the stream. The president wants those bees at Camp David yesterday." As the SUVs retreated, Samuel knelt in the dirt, letting the hybrids crawl across his tears. Some battles weren't fought in courtrooms or boardrooms, but in the quiet loyalty of creatures too small for most to notice. The Situation Room smelled of freshly brewed coffee and nervous sweat as Samuel adjusted his borrowed tie, the starched collar chafing against his sun-weathered neck. Across the polished mahogany table, AgriGrow's CEO Richard Vaughn glared over a stack of legal briefs, his $3,000 suit failing to conceal the vein throbbing in his temple. The president's science advisor drummed her fingers beside a live feed of Camp David's apiary, where Samuel's hybrid bees now resided in climate-controlled luxury. "This is absurd." Vaughn slammed his palm on the table, making the water glasses tremble. "You're taking the word of insects over a Fortune 500 company?" Musk, who'd been silently scrolling through data on his tablet, finally looked up. "Actually, we're taking the word of Dr. Rachel Callaway's peer-reviewed research." He tapped the screen, and the wall monitors lit up with Emily's tear-streaked face, live streaming to 14 million viewers from the Rose Garden, where she and Lily demonstrated the bee's toxin detection system, which your lawyers buried for a decade after her death. Samuel's hands clenched under the table. He hadn't set foot in Washington since testifying before the USDA in '89, when slick attorneys had reduced his life's work to the ramblings of a hobbyist. But today, the power dynamics had shifted. The president himself leaned forward, his Marine Corps pin glinting under the recessed lights. "Mr. Callaway," the commander-in-chief said quietly, "explain to me how these bees could end California's water wars." Samuel stood, his knees protesting as he approached the holographic display. With a swipe, he activated Rachel's final research module, the one he'd found scribbled in the margins of her childhood Bible. "Each bee colony acts as a living supercomputer," he said, voice gaining strength as the 3D models visualized his words. "Their dance patterns encode water quality data more accurately than any sensor. My wife enhanced this natural ability through selective breeding." The display zoomed in on bee wings vibrating at precise frequencies. "What we discovered last week is that they don't just detect toxins, they neutralize them through enzymatic secretions." A stunned silence fell. Vaughn's face turned the color of spoiled milk. The president's advisor gasped. "You're saying these bees can clean polluted water?" "Not just clean." Musk took over, pulling up schematics of industrial-scale apiaries. "They create a self-replicating filtration system, one that could restore the Ogallala aquifer in our lifetime." Vaughn's chair screeched as he stood. "This is bioterrorism. Those insects are genetically modified." "So is every cornfield you own," Samuel shot back, throwing down USDA documents showing AgriGrow's illegal GMO trials. The room erupted into chaos as reporters outside the door began shouting questions. Then the unthinkable happened. A shrill alarm blared as Secret Service agents burst in, dragging Vaughn away from his briefcase. Inside, a canister labeled bee-calming pheromones tested positive for fentanyl, enough to wipe out every hive at Camp David. The president's face darkened as he viewed the security footage, Vaughn bribing a staffer to accidentally drop the poison during the apiary tour. Musk's phone buzzed with an alert. He showed Samuel the screen. Tesla shareholder vote. 89% in favor of hostile agri-grow takeover. Outside, the roar of a crowd swelled as Emily's live stream hit 20 million views. Samuel watched through the bulletproof windows as his granddaughter, wearing Rachel's old beekeeping veil, guided the First Lady through a hive inspection. The symbolic weight wasn't lost on anyone. Vaughn screamed one last threat as agents hauled him away. "You'll never prove corporate intent." But Samuel was already walking toward the door. He had all the proof he needed, in the bees, in his wife's research, and in the way Emily stood up straighter when she saw him coming, as if generations of Callaways stood with her. The president stopped him with a hand on his shoulder. "Where are you going, son?" Samuel didn't hesitate. "To teach my granddaughter how to split a hive." The invitation arrived on handmade paper embedded with wildflower seeds. "You're cordially invited to the first annual Callaway Honey Festival." Samuel smiled at the childish doodles in the margins, Emily's bees, Lily's rockets, and one very fat cow drawn with obvious affection. Outside his window, tour buses lined the road as visitors streamed into the visitor center. Farmers from 7 continents had come to learn the technology that would save their land. Musk's text buzzed in his pocket. Breaking, EPA adopts bee standards as national water safety metric. Attached was a photo of Lily presenting to the UN, her braids swinging as she gestured to a hologram of Bessie's now-famous calf. Samuel tucked the invitation into his overalls and grabbed his veiled hat. The hives awaited inspection, the bees danced their data-rich dances, and somewhere beyond the horizon, new droughts were being thwarted by old wisdom. He paused at Rachel's memorial stone, running his fingers over the epitaph. "She taught the bees to sing." The hum of wings was his answer.